Another good feature in TeamCity is something that we call build features. Build features enable you to perform different types of tasks while you compile and build a source code. There are several build features that you can add by going to Build Features tab and clicking on Add Build Feature button. Some of them are specific for different languages and platforms. For example, Assembly Info Patcher is for .NET Framework applications. You can update the application and assembly information by changing the information in Assembly Info, for example, by changing the version number. Automatic merge is a good feature, and that is that if you compile and build a code and build succeeds, you can say that merge this branch to the main branch. To add this build feature, for example, you can say watch all feature branches. For example, we can say plus and add all features, and then selectively we can say but don't include RC branch, and then we can say if the branch succeeds, if a code that is committed to a given branch other than RC branch gets compiled and build succeeds, then merge that to the RC branch. You can also have a merge commit message, which is by default merge branch and then the name of the branch, and we can say perform this merge if build is successful. So by doing that, whenever a developer pushes a change to the feature branch, you can automatically merge their changes to a given branch as well. This is good for automation, but you just have to make sure that you're merging the right code. Another useful build feature that you can use is commit status publisher. This is very useful if you create pull requests in your team. You can apply this rule on all source code or VCS routes, or you can choose a specific VCS route, and the publisher can be applied on GitLab, GitHub, Team Foundation servers, Bitbucket, and so forth. And the publisher can apply the rule on GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, and Azure DevOps. So if I choose GitHub, I need to log into GitHub, and so far we have used username and password. The username was TeamCity Octopus with a password. To make sure that I can connect to GitHub, we can click on test connection and we can just save this. Now what happens is that if I go to GitHub and work on a fork or work on a feature branch, and in order to merge my changes to the actual main source code or main branch, I will have to create a pull request. Then TeamCity can build my pull request, and if the build succeeds, then I can see in GitHub that the code in the pull request is built and has no problem. Then whoever reviews my pull request can merge it. So if I go to my development environment in Windows and in GitHub, I had a repository called CI/CD demo. I go to CI/CD repository and click on new pull request, and I choose the RC branch as my source branch, and I create a pull request. Then there should be a check for CI/CD in here, and that means that I have to go and build this project in my TeamCity. So if I go back to TeamCity and run a build manually or wait for the automatic build to complete, this was triggered because I have a trigger, and I go back to GitHub, you see that once the build was successful in GitHub, you can see this check mark and it says that the .NET Project TeamCity build is finished, and then you can merge this code, being sure that it's not going to break the code. So as I said, this is one of the very commonly used build features. There are many build features. I invite you to review the build features and see which one applies to you more. So apart from commit status publisher, automatic merge, and assembly info patcher, there is another one which is file content replacer. This is good if you want to populate files, for example, XML files or some files just for change management and that type of things. You can use this. If you have any text file, JSON file, XML file, and you want to update its content, you can use this build feature. I normally don't do that during building and compiling. Normally we do these type of activities in Octopus Deploy during deployment. Try not to overuse the build features, because later for other developers and engineers, it might be a bit confusing that why certain things happen when you build a code. So use it only for normally sending commit status back to GitHub or to your other Git repositories, and also for versioning and that type of things. Some of these are outdated and obsolete. So pull request is obsolete. I don't think we should use that anymore. And also there are some other ones that are normally checks. For example, free disk space. If your build is going to be huge and your GitHub repository is like 5 gigs or 3 gigs, which is not very usual, but you have to make sure you have enough disk space for that. For example, you can use free disk space build feature. Use build feature again for making checks. That is my suggestion to you. Use it to perform like disk space checks, make sure the pull request builds and compiles with no problem and that type of things. Try not to change things as much, because as I said, it might become confusing for other developers.